complex, inefficient, and inflexible. These are the three words used by the team reviewing Australia's migration program. As some of you might be already aware that Australian government released a review of Australia's migration program. And in this specific video, we will talk about the proposed changes to Australia's migration program, specifically focusing on international students. Now, to give you a context about this migration program changes, on 2nd of September 2022, Australian government announced the review of Australia's migration program. This was done in order to do two main things. First one is to meet the current challenges that Australia face in regards to the temporary workers and the labor shortages. And the second one is to set a clear direction for the decades to come, which will help Australia to navigate through the challenges it might face in the coming times. Now, after completing their review, the reviewers presented their final report to the government on 21st of March 2023, and they proposed total of 38 changes to Australia's migration program. Now, the review largely focused on Australia's biggest migration problem, which is having permanently temporary workers, with nearly 1.8 million people on temporary visas here in Australia. Temporary visas like student visas, working holiday makers, and many other temporary visas. And as I mentioned earlier, review suggested many changes to Australia's migration program. One of them is to increase the temporary skilled migration income to up to $70,000 per year, which government already said that it will be implemented from the 1st of July 2023. But there are many specific changes that are suggested for international students. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be focusing on that in this specific video. So let's get into these proposed changes for international students. So the chapter 12 of this review actually talks about international students in detail. The report obviously acknowledged the contribution that international education makes to Australian economy. It is considered to be the fourth largest export for Australia. So it's quite clear that education is one of the biggest export for Australia. However, the report finds that Australia is not focused on getting high potential international students. And based on that, here are some of the changes that have been suggested. The first one is regarding English language requirement. Now, the report suggests that the English language requirements could be too low for some of the visas like student visas and graduate visas. So in the report, it is suggested that there should be an increase of English language requirement for student visas and for the graduate visas as well, which means students may need to achieve higher scores in the English language test in order to get these sort of visas. The second major changes is in regards to the temporary graduate visas. Now, the review suggests that the government should provide automatic temporary graduate visas to students after completion of their studies. Now, as per the review, this will help students to demonstrate their potentials in the Australian labor market. As many students after completing their study look to apply for these temporary graduate visas, it can take a bit of time to get these sort of visas, and the potential employers may not be able to give jobs to the students while they're still waiting for these visas to be granted. So it is kind of a disadvantage for international students while they're waiting for these sort of visas to be granted. So the review suggests that there should be an automatic grant of these temporary graduate visas to the students after completing their studies, obviously with some exceptions. And in regards to the temporary graduate visas, there is another change that has been suggested, which is to adjust the duration of the temporary graduate visas for international students. Now, this is suggested in order to secure high-skilled graduates for permanent migration. Now, this change is kind of coming into effect from 1st of July 2023 anyways, as the government has already announced the increase of time frames for temporary graduate visas for the students who are studying in specific courses, especially the courses where Australia is needing those skills. And we have covered that in one of our previous videos where we discuss about these updates. The next proposed change is to review the work hour cap for international students. Specifically speaking, this review is in regards to the unpaid work, like internships, unpaid work experience, and so on. Currently, these unpaid working hours are including in student work hour cap, which means students usually have to choose between unpaid work experience or paid part-time work. So the review suggests that these unpaid work experience hours should not be part of the working hour cap. This obviously will help international students to gain additional work experience while they are still studying, without them have to worry about their student work hours, especially for this unpaid work. The next change proposed is in regards to the genuine temporary entrant requirement, which is GTE. So the review suggests that we should move away from GTE to GST. GST stands for Genuine Student Test. This is to make sure that only genuine students who are planning to study in Australia are coming to Australia. This will help to improve the integrity of the international education education system here in Australia. As the review mentioned, that there are some people who might be using student visa as a backdoor for a work visa or permanent migration visas. So this change has been suggested to make sure that only genuine students who are willing to study here in Australia are coming to study here. And along with this, one more change is to minimize the time that the former students can spend in Australia on temporary basis. As some students keep on renewing their visas on temporary basis, the review suggests that this should be minimized. Overall, the review suggests the strengthening of international student visas. Now, as per my personal opinion, if you are a genuine student who is coming to study here in Australia genuinely, and if you're studying in one of those areas where Australia certainly needs your skills, then you shouldn't be worrying too much about these proposed changes. Now, obviously, the government will consider all these proposed changes, but just to let you know that this is not a law yet, or these changes has not been implemented yet. Once the government review all these proposed changes and decide on which ones to implement, we'll keep you posted. So make sure to follow us on Instagram as well, as we update our followers over there as soon as possible. I would love to hear your thoughts on these updates and changes as well. What are your thoughts on these changes? Please leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, if you find any value, make sure to share it with your friends as well. If you're new to the channel, I highly recommend you to subscribe, as we produce videos for international students here in Australia. So make sure to become part of our family. And as always, thank you for watching. See you in the next one.